I can send you a phone number of a guy that does a lot of those. But that's typically for that older investor that that doesn't really want to swap properties. They don't want to be a landlord no more, but they don't want to pay the gain. So they sell it into a trust, and then that trust invests the money basically for them. And those are really the um, only options. I mean, there's some creative things that you can do by selling investment properties. If you want to bless your children while you're still alive, do a 1031 exchange for a property that your kids would like to have, and then put that property in the trust and name them the beneficiary, and then have them pay the real estate taxes every year. And now you've just agree you've just completed the terms of the 1031. So there are some, but no, it's really a swap till you drop thing. Um, is kind of the problem, and that's what we're going to see a lot of investors. Just imagine Lonnie Branson when he's 80 years old with all the properties that he owns, and he doesn't want to be a landlord anymore. What he's going to be looking for solutions, right? On what to do, because I mean, it's not only do you sell the property and pay the gain, you have to, if you've depreciated the property over the years, you got to, then the government recaptures all that depreciation. So that's how we go from a 15% tax to 25% tax. That looks more like 25% when you're done. So, but yeah, there's really no great angles.
The only other one, David, that I've heard, so I will preface this, say by I'm not an expert on this, and I probably don't have all the detail, but I do know it has been a trend in the past, is using refinancing as an option, even as a cash out refinance. Sometimes you pull that cash out, and that money that you pull out and I guess preface, I'm not a pro at this, but the way I understand it, the cash you pull out is then a loan and not a capital gains event when you pull that out. And so some people could utilize that money out from the cash out refinance, and you could use it to purchase another property. So that's another method. And then you wouldn't have a capital gains event necessarily, because that's loan money and not cash per se in your pocket. Sounds a little different, but
you just got to make sure the numbers work out.
Nathan and I had that exact conversation a couple of days ago, Joe, about that, because what a lot of you can do is, but that actually doesn't change your cost basis. So the cost basis, when you go to divest yourself or sell that property, it's still, you bought it for this amount, you sold it for this amount, the gain's this much. Now you can, like, the conversation I had with Nathan was, can you do a HELOC on an investment property? And the answer is yes. But a lot of banks will give you, on your personal home, they'll give you 80%. A lot of times they'll only do 50% or 60%. But that is another way to acquire more properties while still doing the other one. But yeah, I don't know enough about that either. So.
But it's kind of nice to have some of those tools. Even that, Tom, was kind of the HELOC being at 50% on investment property. That's a great potential tool if you've had a property bought cheap and then the market went up in the last several years and you gained 100% of equity. So then, you might have $100,000 to play with you didn't think you'd had to play with. Whether that's to buy something cash and then refinance it later and pull the cash out, and then you pull your cash. Like, there's a lot of tools there that can be done. What other things what other kinds of things are you thinking, David? I'd love to go at this a little bit more.
I've looked at all those things. I've been considering this for a couple of years, so I'm just trying to exhaust every nook and cranny I can, and it sounds like if I'm not there, I'm almost there. Lonnie said those are the only legal things that you could do, so we didn't continue that conversation.
I'm curious to know what's beyond the. Never know.
He doesn't know any of that. I'm sure.
It sounds like this is a topic for that wealth building class.
I know, and that was a question I had too. Brandy, do you happen to know any details on timing on that, or what that looks like? And if I missed it, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's at 3 o'clock.
3 o'clock, April 16th. It's a Wednesday, so it'll be the third Wednesday of the month. moving forward. 3 o'clock, we'll meet in the market center, and then we'll move over somewhere to do a happy hour after that.
Thank you. Yeah, I am excited for that. And this is exactly what these kind of topics will, or
Yeah.
I'm assuming the wealth building class will definitely hammer. But okay, what else? What other tax things are, obviously, who understands depreciation? I think that's something to understand when you're in the real estate, especially if you can understand it well enough to, sorry, I don't know why my video turned off, but if you can understand it well enough to explain to a client, can anybody do that? Tom, it sounded like you probably could. I'd probably get away with it, but
I could bluff my way through it, but I don't want to bluff my way through it with you guys.
that's kind of where I'm at. But but it's basically the value of the property is depreciated over 27.5 years, right? Isn't
Yeah.
that the basic concept of it? And so you can defer that portion, that percentage of income, especially rental income, for example, every year you can depreciate that much out of your earnings, correct? Does that sound right?
Pretty close. Yeah.
Does anybody else understand that or need more questions along that? Because that took me a long time to understand it. Because I know Lonnie talks about the multiple methods of being able to, how real estate makes you money through cash flow, through appreciation, tax deferment, and what's the fourth one I'm missing? Tax deferment would be it, but there's a fourth one that I'm missing there. So, but I know depreciation is a big one that's worth talking about a little bit, and that always comes up during tax seasons. If you have multiple properties, you're probably your accountant's most likely tracking most of that stuff for you. They depreciate those because they know your cost basis, what you bought the property for, and so that's what Tom was alluding to earlier about what your basis was, what you bought it for, what your expenses are, and then what you sell it for. The difference of that is your capital gains.
Hey, Joe.
Yes, sir.
I actually did something smart. I kept my notes. The 4 pillars of investing: cash flow. All right. So you're obviously going to get a little bit of flow each month, right?
Yep.
And then capital appreciation, which is roughly, that's that 27.5%, or Lonnie talks about 4% roughly is what you're going to be able
4% per year on a 30-year scheme. Yeah, average.
Yeah. So you're going to be able to do that. So that's going to help you out year over year. You're going to make that. Principal reduction, obviously they're going to pay the rent for you,
That's
and the principal is going to go down. They're doing that for you. You're not having to make that payment. They do it when you have a renter in there. And then of course the tax reduction, you're going to get that as well. So
I have this conversation. I appreciate that. That's really helpful. I have this conversation a lot with my investors, especially with our owners, because I have to tell people sometimes, and I love it. Like cash flow is the best thing that you can have in a rental market. I'm going to go down a tangent a little bit just because, but cash flow is the best thing you can have. So if you have a property, one that I bought, one of my very first one I bought for $50,000. My mortgage was $425 a month. I got $850 a month of rent on it. So I was cash flowing $450 a month. So that cash flow, when you can get in this situation, anytime you're cash flowing is fantastic. That cash flow is going to keep going. But on top of that cash flow, to your point, Ryan, you have that cash flow, you have the mortgage payoff, which is the tenant buy down, right? Because you're not paying that down. If you have a tenant in this property, the tenant's paying that down. And then, so that's 2 pieces of income that are happening to you. Then you have the depreciation of the property. So that original 50 grand, I get to depreciate from my income over 27.5 years. And then what's the last one?
You get the tax reduction, but you get the capital appreciation.
Appreciation.
So every year our property values are going up, and like 2021, we saw like 14 or 20% appreciation in just 1 year. But if you were that investor back in like 09 and 10 and 11, you weren't really loving life back then, but you were probably buying back then though, because the market was what it was. And then you were really seeing what happened about a decade later. So it will come around, but that's one of those things. The slow pieces are 2, 3, and 4: capital appreciation, principal reduction, and tax reduction. Those are slow. Those are slow burners, but the cash flow is the now. And most investors are wanting the now on these rentals. And that's just not something that's going to be like super wealth building right out of the gate. These are slow movers right here.
It's all four of those that add up to a great amount. Everybody wants the cash flow now, but I have to coach people into often coach them into, hey, just listen, even if you're breaking even, you're still making money because you have those other features working for you, right? You have tenant buy down, you have appreciation, and you have the depreciation that you get to depreciate on taxes. So all three of those things are making you money over time, even if you're breaking even in an investment. And so that's not the model I like to follow. I want one that has all four of those.
Yeah.
But sometimes you have to be able to coach somebody, especially, I don't know if any of you have heard about the 1% rule in investing. A lot of people have, and that basically that 1% rule says if I can make $1,000 a month on rent, then the $1,000 a month, that means that property is worth $100,000 to me, essentially. So it's 1% each month of what your total all-in cost is, essentially. But so
Yeah, that rule doesn't really apply anymore.
Oh, it does. It's just hard to
I
find.
mean, it does. It's just hard to achieve.
That's
So,
exactly to my point, though, Tom. Is what I'm trying to say is that rule is something that we've lived by for so long, and now I'm working with a lot of investors that it's so hard because we have so much competition, especially in the investment market, especially with investors that don't think through the process well, and they're just not smart number wise. They're over investing, but that creates competition for us. So sometimes I have to coach my clients into saying, hey, this could still make you a lot of money, even if you're not cash flowing every month. And so those are conversations that I have to have with people fairly often. And then just to use that same example, David, you were talking a little bit about this with the 1031 exchange, and then it kind of hits all the points. This is my own personal example, but with that $50,000 house that was making $425 a month, I sold that January of 23, I think, that one property at a deal. I still sold it at a deal for 105,000 to somebody just because it was easy. But then I took that money and did a 1031 exchange, came to the table with $250 and bought a fourplex that was worth about 300,000. And so I'm all in on that. The price of my original investment, essentially, of a $50,000 purchase. And that's utilizing those tools, all four of those items together that we talk about, that Lonnie hits on, along with those tax advantages and tools with tax deferment, like the 1031 exchange program that David was talking about. And so those are the kinds of things that allow you to literally trade up those monopoly pieces and make that such a great point. So Sandy shared in the chat too over here, it looks like a number of things about the 4 pillars of investing. So if you guys want to take a look at it, that's kind of helpful. What questions came up from all that, or what comments?
Joe, I think there's a lot of us inside this chat right here that want to build wealth. I think we're all interested in that. We're in real estate. And then there's several of us that haven't dipped our toe into this rental market yet. And it's so, like you mentioned, it's so competitive, and we just don't know what we don't know. And it seems like we might be swimming with some sharks. And I've seen it, and you guys have all seen these flips that have been overbought. Like when they initially bought them, they way overpaid for them. And then their budgets are way out of whack. And then they're trying to sell this thing, and they can't get what they want out of it. So that competition is making it difficult too. And I think this may take us into our class on the 16th as well. But like, man, how do we get started? Like, where do we dig and get started, or who could we partner with and get something going? Because it's just like the first, just getting out of the gate is what seems the most difficult. And then once you get your feet underneath you and understand a little bit more about it, then it seems like then you can start to acquire at a little bit faster rate. But most people never start because they just don't have enough knowledge or confidence in doing what they're going to do. It seems like a big risk to them. Where do we start?
I might be the wrong person to ask, but my answer to this question is I will lean on I'm not afraid to take risks. I like to take risks. I'm okay with it because I'm risking on myself. I'm taking the bet on myself. But I also tend to lead with the brake rather than the gas pedal, meaning to Tom's point earlier, there's hardly any 1% rules out there, properties that'll hit that 1% rule. I just won't act until I find one. But with that being said, that's me leaning on the brake. Most people shouldn't probably do that. That's why I said I might not be the best person to ask. But what my advice would be to find the money first, and then you'll find the deals. Because that's the other thing is I just want to be able to curate some kind of nest egg. I want to be able to either have their tools in place, whether it's a hard money lender, my own cash, HELOC, or whatever the situation is, to have that money ready so that when that deal does come up, that once in every couple of years deal, that I'm ready to get it and I don't have to wait for it to pass me by and miss it. To answer your question, that's my number one thing to say to get ready, Ryan. And most of the time, people won't need, just to put that out there, if you want the cash, it's 20% for an investment property of whatever you're going to pay for it, or 25% down if it's a multifamily. That's the baseline number. If you have that plus or minus some cash, you're probably going to be okay. There's always tools around that. You can buy your percentage rate down with points sometimes, but that, as a general rule, that's something to work with. You can use hard money lenders that do all kinds of creative stuff, and they're good and bad. And so there's good of both. And a lot of people made a lot of money on other people's money using hard money lenders. So I have nothing to say against that, but that's a tool. Find that tool, be ready for it, for when that deal comes along, you don't miss it. That's the number one thing to say to get ready. And then I'd say explore the off-market opportunities. And those are really hard to find. But they're there. Paul has found a couple that are potential opportunities that he's brought to me, and I've been really appreciative of them. And whether they work out or not, that's something different. But at least they're there. You just got to look for it, and you got to get really creative. I don't do a great job at going after and trying to find my own off-market opportunities like I should. But I'd say that's your next biggest thing, so that you avoid those overpaying investors that are out there trying to drive prices up that really don't know what they're doing. They're just going to try to drive it up. They're probably not going to make money at the end. So I don't know.
Joe, I love that. Yeah, just reiterating what you were saying right there. And I was actually just talking to my youngest, Maddie, about that last night. It's like, it's amazing how many deals you can find when you have your capital ready to go. Your eyes are so much more wide open, like you're ready to strike when the time's right. So you're over halfway there if you've got that 20% down. So what 20% do I need to save? Well, look at what investment properties cost or where you're looking to buy investment properties. And more than likely, you're probably looking at $40,000 to $50,000 in capital you should probably have ready to go to get something started. Would that be a good number, Joe? Am I overshooting it, undershooting it?
Say the total.
40 to 50,000.
Yeah, I mean,
ready to go.
20% down on a $200,000 house is 40 grand, right? And so that's probably accurate. You probably can get in less than that, but then you're going to need the money for repairs or something. So that's where there's play to play with that. And then the other thing, Ryan, you alluded to this too, find the people. There might be other people that want to partner with you on these. It's better to have half a deal than no deal at all, potentially. You both bring something, and there's a lot of people that would be willing to jump in. That was one of the things that I probably took for granted and didn't ask enough of at the beginning, is going after people that I was pretty sure would jump in with me, and I just never did it.
Yeah.
There is a mindset of like, oh, I don't want to partner because they want half and I want half, that's 50% give up. I'd almost rather partner with a bank that only wants their 9%, So the guy I used to work for used to have that mentality. And so that's why he would never partner up. But there's a lot of people, like, when you just can't get started or you don't have the cash flow, there's a lot of people that would go in and do different things. And so just keep that in mind. I did want to bring something up too, because I saw it on this chat as well. Darren brought it up actually. Yeah, you can pledge other properties with equity as collateral for the down payment. Also, I've done that. A lot of times I'll put second mortgages. I did that on that first house I bought. I used equity from that house to help buy my second investment, my triplex that I bought. To that point, I didn't have to bring as much money to the table for it, but they had it on the record of having some collateral toward that. So that's another option if you have other investments already. David, that might work for you a little bit too, is you might be able to figure out a way to collateralize those other properties to help purchase at lower buy-ins. So that's something else to consider. All right, that's a lot. I had a mouthful there.
Joe, I think this is such a great topic because again, we're all wanting to build wealth, and where else would we do it? I mean, obviously we can look in the stock market, but as we talked about earlier, it's a little volatile right now. But what do we trust in? We wake up every day and we come and we work in the real estate arena. So we understand it. We have a pretty good grasp. There's some areas within it we don't know, but that's why we work together and we have this training so that we can do that. And I'd be ecstatic if we could get, 10 of our agents this year to buy their first investment property. How do we do that? Like, how do we get people there? And I think just starting the conversation today, getting some money together, partnering with somebody, form an LLC with them so you're protected with that, an individual deal. It's not like they are partner with you on everything you'll ever do, but it'll be individual, and create a plan to where you can at least get started and make that investment.
I'm ready for you to do it, Ryan.
I'm working on something else really big right now. I'll tell you later.
Just giving you a hard time. I talked about that with Sandy for a long time. I don't know if she's still on here, but Sandy, I gave her a hard time for a long time about getting her first investment property, and then she did it, and it sounds like she's having fun. So anyway, I'm excited
Here
for
I
that.
am.
Hey there. Yeah, tell me about it, Sandy. Are you still having fun with it?
So we actually did a budget and everything, and we're at budget on it, and everything seems to be going well. So yeah, thank you for pushing me around on that.
Well, it's been fun, but
I thought I was too old, but you know what? Really am not.
Sandy sold me the fourplex in a roundabout way that I bought, by the way. That was kind of fun. So
Yeah.
good job. All
I
right.
should have bought that.
You should have, but now it's fine.
Yeah.
Anyway, well, thanks for that, Sandy. It's fun when you get into it, but the first one's super scary.
It is.
And remember that, like, especially if you have investors, new time investors, like the fear that comes with that first investment purchase is big. I have an investor who's got other investment properties, but he's going through some for the first time with a hard money lender, and it's something else. It's a whole new process, and this creates a lot of stress. I think he'll be good in the long run, but it's been a lot of stressful process for him. So
yeah, I
Hey, Joe.
wasn't gonna do a hard money lender. I'm scared of those, but I mean, I think they're probably useful for some people. I'm just not that big of a risk taker like that. I like the sure things, and so they kind of scare me.
So I think as real estate agents, I mean, I think if anybody's positioned to find the deals in real estate, it should be us.
yeah.
Yep.
So, and I think a lot, I ended up buying my first property I met with a client who had moved her mom to Carnegie Village. And the whole time I met with her, she complained constantly about not wanting to deal with the house, not wanting to deal with the stuff in it, not wanting to do this and that. And then Nathan looked. I actually at the time I was a fairly new agent. I had Nathan tag along with me, and he looks over at me, goes, "Why don't you just buy it from her?" So I sat down and I did the math backwards for her. This is what it looks like if you sell it on the market with commissions, and this is what I'll give you. And that's the way I got my first one. I went and I pulled money out of my IRA because I knew if I got it back within 60 days, I could do it without penalty. So I pulled that money out to buy it. Meanwhile, I went to the bank and got my first HELOC set up. And ever since then, I bought every property I've had with a HELOC. And it's kind of about knowing, and you learn over time and you learn as you go, but it's about learning about what not to be afraid of, right? And whatever, mold and foundation issues still scare me, right? I still, don't want to go. Now I'm less concerned about mold. I understand it, but you kind of learn what to do. And then you build the relationships with other people, other agents in the office. Ryan and I put a deal together over there, remember, with our friend, with our one buddy who there was going to be some challenges involved, and Ryan needed somebody he can work with, right? Same thing. I did a deal with Darren that was very similar. He knew he had a challenging situation, and I was able to give him confidence that I was the guy to work through it with him. So, like I said, the opportunities are there. we know what stuff should cost, and we do certainly know what stuff should sell for, right? So it's pretty, and knowing what something will sell for is always where I start. And then I work backwards to figure out what I should pay for it, right? And at the end, at the end of the day. And then once you buy one, I mean, and you get it, I mean, it used to be a little easier because lenders used to give you money on appraised value. So I could go buy a property for 200, put 40 in it, now get it appraised for 300, convert that to a loan, and now I don't have to put any money down, right? But they kind of changed that, the way they do business. So that's unfortunate, but there are, once you get, like saying, once you get one or two, it gets easier to get the third and the fourth. So.
Hey, Tom, to your point right there, and this is something Gary Keller had said, and Tim, you were probably in the room too when Gary said it. He said every time you go to a listing appointment or meet with somebody about selling their property, you need to first decide whether or not you're going to buy that property from them, because you're in the business of real estate. So it's not just a listing appointment. It's an interview to see maybe if it's an opportunity for you to purchase it. And maybe it's not, not every property is right for an investment opportunity, but like Tom, you and Nate having your ears open to, man, the seller has certain needs and certain wants and what they're going to do and what they're not going to do and what they will and won't tolerate. Like, well, I can make this easy for you. And of course, you got a great name for your company. I love that, because it does fix the problem. It's the solution to the agonizing piece that's just in their face and they don't want to deal with it anymore. So why don't we do this and we can close in 3 weeks or whatever it may be, and we're done, So I love that. But yeah, decide first when you go into a listing appointment, hey, we found our money, right, Joe? We got our money ready to go. And then we walk into the listing appointment and we decide there, we show them exactly how this works and how we can help them, or we could buy it right now from you.
Yeah. Drop the mic. That was good. All right. Well, we only got 4 minutes left. Any closing thoughts before me, guys? Otherwise, I don't want to start another topic on here, but or any other real estate questions. Maybe you guys have been running through particular deals. I'd like to end on that if somebody had a question. Anybody online?
Now, I'll share this a little bit,
Thanks,
just because this was, so I had a listing that went live Tuesday, and pretty unique situation. Older seller, moved into a retirement community. Kids are older too. When you get to be, close to 90, your kids are pretty old too, right? So nobody wants to, so one of the challenges was they didn't want to do anything to the property, right? And it was a decent property and didn't need a whole lot. And I did a little bit of a strategy on the property. I priced it very competitively. And I told the seller my strategy was going to be, I was going to get multiple people interested in this property, and I was going to get somebody to do an in its present condition addendum. And so at the end of the day, I was able to get that done and get the price up $10,000 for them. So I felt like it was, I don't know, I went back it a little bit different way. Instead of pricing it at the very top of the market, and then, getting into a negotiation where I was having to give stuff away, was actually able to get multiple people interested and use that leverage to get my client exactly what they wanted. So.
Yeah, and then you look like the pro in that situation for sure, the champion, the hero in that situation. That's great, Tom. That's a great story. Well, thanks, guys. I think I'm done with what we've got. I have tons of topics, but not enough time to keep running with it. So I appreciate you guys jumping on here. I always appreciate the feedback and what you guys have to say.
Joe, awesome meeting, man.
Great job,
Great
man.
mastermind. Thank you.
Thanks, y'all.
Thank you.
Let's sell some.